This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, The Jerk is celebrating its 40th anniversary. I would have been 7 years old in 1979 when that came out, and that was a film that first starring role for Steve Martin. But I have the scene stealer of the movie, in my opinion. You know, I love this woman. She was the one that put Steve Martin in check. Yes, I have the lovely Catlin Adams on the phone with me, who played Patty. How do you do, Catlin?
How do you do, Greg?
You know what? What a way to celebrate my birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Do you think I could squeeze a happy birthday sing-song from you?
You mean, well, I did play a dominatrix, so I wonder how a dominatrix would sing happy birthday. I would need like a whip. Or handcuffs or something.
That's quite a birthday party. That's quite a birthday party.
Yeah, well, that's what I think Steve Martin thought too when we met. I think he was quite shocked.
That of all things shocks him.
Well, no, it was the audition for the part. I played this character, Patty Bernstein, and it was not a typical part. So they had auditions, and I auditioned with Steve Martin in the room and Carl Reiner, the director, the fabulous Carl Reiner.
Yes.
And in the audition, basically, when I was working with Steve, I threw him against the wall in the audition. I ripped his shirt open. I bit his nipple. Threw him on a couch, and then I got on top of him. And needless to say, I got the part.
I love it.
The thing about the audition was I did all of that, and his entire reaction to me was sort of a semi-smile at the end of it. He was very pliable. He was like goo. I could do anything I wanted to him, and he just followed along. So it was really fun. And by the way, that was the first year of Saturday Night
Live?
Yeah, it was the first year. He was, I think, one of the hosts of Saturday Night Live. And I didn't know who he was. I had no idea who he was. As a matter of fact, I was in film school at the time. I was at AFI. So I wasn't watching television. I didn't know what Saturday Night Live was.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met him, he was just kind of this kind of quiet, shy, sweet guy. But I didn't know the wild, crazy guy. I didn't know the comedian. I didn't know anything. So I was kind of naive and just trying to do this part the best way I knew. And I did ask permission, by the way, since it is the Me Too movement right now. I did ask permission if I could move him around. And he said yes.
Well, he's still a wild and crazy guy.
Well, he's a Renaissance man. I just really think he's an astonishing playwright and writer and musician. And he's just a Renaissance man. One of my favorite scenes in the film, this scene still, to this day, cracks me up, because we know the scene where he gets all excited about his name being in the phone book, when he gets all excited, right, jumping up and down, he goes, "Things are going to start happening to me now." He meets you, and you're up in the Ferris wheel there, and you guys are, getting intimate, and he goes, "Hey, that's my name tattooed on your ass right under the date. First I get my name in the phone book, and then it's on your ass. I bet more people see that than the phone book." Yes. Imagine having children and them watching you doing that movie.
talk about embarrassment. Not for me, for them. But I just want to tell you, I learned to ride a motorcycle for that film.
Mm-hmm.
And then the day we were shooting, they gave me another motorcycle, which I was not familiar with. And some scenes were cut out of the movie. One scene, which he was riding on behind me on my motorcycle.
Yeah.
But because it was new, I couldn't stop the bike.
Okay.
So now I have the star of the movie on my motorcycle. I'm riding a new motorcycle, and I can't stop the bike. I don't know how. And we don't know what to do. So I'm going around in circle, and I can't stop the bike. And finally, the entire crew stands in a line holding hands. And I basically go at them with the bike, and that's how I stopped it. I couldn't. I mean, I could have killed us both, is what I could have done. So I just want to tell you that sometimes movies, as much as they prepare, then they throw you off the day of shooting in a way that you can't possibly know what to do. So that's film acting.
Tell me,
Catlin almost killed the star of the movie during the week.
That not good, but at least you avoided it.
Yeah, well, the crew did. They saved his life and mine.
Do you still have his name tattooed on your hindquarters under the date?
Oh, I've moved that tattoo around over the years. It's a movable feast, as I call it. I'm not a tattoo girl myself.
No.
Are you a tattoo kind of guy?
Actually, I'm not. You'd think somebody that calls himself the Python Hyena would be, but you know what? I see people have tattoos removed off them. You see people, especially in relationships, they'll have a name tattooed, and then they break up and they have the name removed. I'm like, you know what? Just take and draw on yourself and then shower it off and then draw something else. Like, I just don't. Yeah.
It's a real thing right now in the culture, and I admire it because I like to hear the stories and why people put it on. And, but the thought of actually getting old and seeing how those tattoos grow and kind of sag doesn't interest me.
Speaking of comedians, Stephen Wright said a funny joke about tattoos. He said he was going to get a tattoo over his whole body of him but taller.
A good idea.
I thought that was funny.
I'm just not into it, but my character was like the first punker on screen.
Yep.
At that time, I was, full out. That's what I geared for, was a punker.
Mm-hmm.
I cut my hair off. I had wild and crazy curly blonde hair, long during the 70s, and kind of had that in the audition. But I realized that I just couldn't have all that hair, and putting my hair in a wig, they would spend the money. So the first day of shooting, when the director saw me, I had cut off all my hair and it made it pink and purple. The costume designer, Theodora Van Runkel, and I came up with this look. So she knew it. She helped me create this look. But the director of the film did not know about it. And I think I almost gave Carl Reiner a heart attack the first day of filming. Because I had this wild, crazy, blonde, curly hair, and all he saw in front of him was this kind of very butch, pink and purple hair, shorts, and me. And he didn't know what to do. I said, this is the way I have to play the part. So I had to really transform myself.
Was it you or a stunt double going through the flaming hoop?
There were 3 stunt doubles.
Okay.
There were 3 stunt doubles, and the first 2 got burned doing that particular stunt.
Yeah.
It took 3 of them to do that stunt, and I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
They all got second-degree burns from the feathers.
Oh, that's sad. I hope they were okay.
Yeah, I hope so too. And it's a comedy,
Yeah. Yeah.
It usually doesn't happen with comedy.
Well, I like it immediately after you're done that stunt. You walk over. First thing you do is you belch.
Yes. I did that on the audition too.
Was that improvised or was that in the script?
No, I improvised it, and they just made it bigger.
Well, I love it when Steve, you drive your motorcycle around Steve Martin, and he's got this pogo dog on a stick, and you go, "Can I have a bite of that?" And he goes, "You might get germs." And you take a bite of it and go, "Put a rubber on it."
It's I mean, the first line is, "Can I? Do you want to have? Well, I can't remember, but something like, can I have a bite of that corn dog?"
Yeah.
The opening line, yeah.
Yeah.
And then put a rubber on it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just, I had the dominatrix kind of thing. So I want to say that, again, Theodora introduced me to Mr. and Mrs. Rubber. And yes, there is such a people like that, Mr. and Mrs. Rubber. And Mr. and Mr. Rubber made all the S&M clothes, all the ones that you mail order. And you go to certain sites. I actually don't know the sites, but you order these clothes, and so they made one of my costumes, and they put me in, I want to say 7-inch, 9-inch stilettos.
Okay.
And I put, boots. And I put these boots on, and I said, "I can't wear these. These really hurt my feet." And the woman said, with a smile on her face, like I had said the sexiest thing in the world, she said, "I know." Meaning pain giving pleasure was something that they do. Making pain pleasurable. But wearing those high heels, walking on your toes, I said, not going to happen. But is that the part of researching that part, the part the actors do on their own, that was my favorite part of doing the film.
Yeah.
That and the audition. Because, everything, I'm always was trying to make things, I was always trying to improvise some jokes or do something. And whenever I came up with a really good idea, Steve took it. So one of the only things that really remained in the film was when he handed me the roses, the flowers, and then I cut off all the flower part and I hold the stem. That was my favorite because they couldn't cut that out.
I love that.
Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Flowers, yeah. So, and Carl Reiner is he's just the best director in the world for actors. He encourages you, gives you courage. He was great. Carl Gottlieb, the writer. There was a great group of people. Theodore Van Munkle was just brilliant and a genius production designer and costumer. And then the one thing that happened with Steve was opening when the film previewed, right? The screening of it. After my scenes were ended, of course I ran to the bathroom. I didn't know if I had to go to the bathroom or throw up. You never know in those moments what feeling is happening, but you just can't handle all of it. You're watching a movie, you're watching yourself, you don't know if it works or not. I just ran to the bathroom after my scenes, and lo and behold, the one person in the lobby pacing like a maniac was Steve Martin. And he was just listening where people were laughing. He wasn't looking at it. He was listening for the audience.
Okay.
I said, are you doing all right? He said, yeah. That's all I got. You okay? Yeah. But we were both like nervous wrecks. I cannot believe, after all these years, that this film is, a classic and is actually on people's best 100 best comedies of all time list.
Yeah, it's the only movie you can find where a dog is named Shithead.
That's right. Now tell me something. You watched it at 7. You couldn't possibly have retained all of that. So
No. I would have been 7 years old in 1979 when it came out. I didn't see it
so
in
when did you watch it?
It would have been years later. I don't know when I first saw it, but I'll tell you, it made me laugh. I still, to this day, Steve Martin's done so many funny movies, but I think The Jerk is probably my favorite of his movies. And there's just so many hilarious lines in that movie.
God, yes.
Yeah.
I love in the carnival when he's selling the junk for like pennies,
Yep.
and you know, and the interesting part is he's so introverted and quiet in real life.
Mm-hmm.
He's the opposite of who he appears to be.
And you did try to guess his weight.
I tried to get him to laugh all the time. I tried to make him laugh. I really did. My intention when we weren't working was, could I make Sue Martin laugh? And I don't think I ever actually accomplished it, but I tried.
You made me laugh.
Well, I couldn't make him. I'll tell you that.
He's a tough audience.
He's a tough audience.
Well, tell me about that trailer. Number one, when you guys go in the trailer, I love that line. He goes, "You can tell an awful lot about a person by the way they live." And he looks around. Judging from this, I could tell you're generally a dirty person. And he says, where's your garbage? You just toss the corn dog.
That's right. That was our first day of shooting.
Yeah?
Yeah, that, as an actor, you're always getting the most intimate scenes or physically sexual scenes on your first day when you basically shake hands and go, how do you do? And actors are always thrown in the most sexual, inappropriate circumstances. You should wait like a couple of days before you shoot those scenes, but we get them the first day. And it happened to me in Jazz Singer with Neil Diamond. The first day of work, we were in bed. And I just go, who's planning the schedule? I mean, hello, how are you? A cup of coffee first would be nice.
Yeah.
But basically, I did in that scene that you described what I, in fact, did in the audition. I basically threw him around, and they let me. And he let me. He was so light.
Yeah.
He was so relaxed, which is really interesting, come to think of it. His body had no tension, so that I could, and that's not an easy thing.
No.
It shows your physical, your physicality as a clown, his ability to be as relaxed as he was, made me able to do whatever it is I did to him. That comes because of his relaxation.
And I love it when you throw the helmet to the side and he goes, "Oh, you put it there."
It's that his timing. I'm the straight man for his comedy. That's really what I was. It's just that I was so intense, for real. I was playing a dominatrix, so I had a humorless character in my head. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that humorless character makes it even funnier because he's so funny in his reaction to everything.
Yeah, and
I'm so serious.
Yeah. Well, even the corn dog scene where you get him to do that wobble this, wobble that, where he's so awkward, where before you take him on the motorcycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean So now you see he goes on the motorcycle, and then I can't. And they had other scenes where I'm riding him on my motorcycle, but obviously they cut them out because I tried to kill him then. So that didn't work. But the interesting work. I thought it was a very brave script.
Yes.
I mean, I was born a poor boy. I was born a poor black boy.
Yeah, I was born a poor black child.
I mean, I was born a poor black. It's one of the funniest openings of any movie I've ever seen.
Yep.
With him not having any rhythm, that's the funniest thing. I can't ever stop laughing at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, a lot of that couldn't be done today, but I'm going to say one thing here. Of course, he doesn't realize, that, of course, he knows he's white and his family is black. But here's the great thing about that. It's the way the family is played and the fact that they took him in and they actually loved him. I don't call it racism here. A lot of the dynamic is because they have a loving family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he believes that he's part of that family and that he has no rhythm. With all that love is just That's what I mean. He's this innocent, believable, lovable idiot. And, that's been around forever, that archetype.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Yeah, to the point where, he sends letters back there and they read them and he goes, "Today Patty promised me a blowjob." This Patty sounds like a really sweet lady. And of course you can see the eldest son kind of snickering to himself because he knows what they're reading, but they don't.
I have two sons, and my oldest son, Gabriel, was in the maybe he was 15 years old, and he was in high school, and it was the last week of school, and they had just taken their final in class, and the teacher says, "Okay, you can watch a movie, and your choice is blah blah or The Jerk." And so Gabriel, my son, who was very quiet, who never really spoke up in school or in class, made a sound like, "Oh no." And the teacher was so surprised to hear from him that when the class chose The Jerk and he said, "Oh no," the teacher said, "What's the matter, Gabriel?" And he said, "Well, my mother's in that movie." So that poor son of mine watched The Jerk for the first time in his life with 15-year-olds in high school. And the day when I picked him up after school, a whole little coterie of kids came around the car looking at me for the first time. Kids who've never paid any attention to me ever. You're invisible as an adult with teenagers. And all of a sudden, they were all looking at me like I was an alien from Mars. And when he got in the car, I said, "What's the matter? What happened? Why are they all gathered here looking at me?" And after we drove off, he said, we watched The Jerk. And I swear to God, I didn't say anything after that. It's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, honey," is what I said.
Well, you know what? You played a funny part. Excuse me.
I did.
Yep.
I love that part. When I die, it'll be what I'll be remembered for. Whatever I've achieved in my whole life will not matter because it'll be on my obituary that I was Patty Bernstein in The Jerk, which is fine by me.
Yes. But and you nearly killed Steve Martin.
And I did. When we did the PR tour, they made me talk about the audition all the time. Because they couldn't believe what I did. And basically, what I did got me the part.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a feeling you might not be the first person to almost killed Steve Martin in a movie.
Probably not.
When you're a wild and crazy guy, things happen.
Yeah, it's true. But, the thing is how a movie lasts and lives and continues to be funny. I mean, that is what a classic film is. I feel that way about Some Like It Hot.
I love that film.
That's my number one comedy, and so I see it and I still laugh. The thing about comedy is even when you know it and you know it's coming, it's still funny, and because humor is the healer for all of us. It's the thing that makes us... I'm hearing I was hearing my own voice echo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's the thing that heals us, I think. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I got to say that I think that Some Like It Hot is fantastic. I think it's the best thing Marilyn Monroe has done, and it had one of the absolute best closing lines of any movie ever, Nobody's perfect.
That's true. Absolutely. You can never forget that line.
No. I love that film, too. Great pick. Great pick. But, yeah.
Yeah.
But Carl Reiner, of course, just got done doing Oh God, and then he does The Jerk. He's on a roll. Yeah.
I realize that.
Yeah. So, had you seen Oh God prior to this?
I never saw Oh God.
Oh, with George Burns? That was the film Carl Reiner did prior. Yeah, he went from George Burns to Steve Martin. Like, talk about getting two comedy geniuses in a row.
Yeah. Well, that was Steve's first film, so he really took a risk and created, they really took a lot of risks with that film because it wasn't naturalistic. It's real but stylized. There's so many, the supporting actors, the supporting cast of that film that held him were it's an extraordinary supporting cast.
Yeah. Well, I guess
character actors.
One of the funniest scenes also for me is Steve Martin trying to read a note in the bathtub, and of course his hands are smudging everything, and he tries to warn his girlfriend, and he goes, "Shithead, come here!" And dog comes in there, and you see him come out there. He's got the dog blocking his nudity. He grabs this other woman's small little dog and sticks on the backside of him. I gotta wonder, what's that?
It's the things that the bits that you're talking about, they were written. So much of I've worked on films, and particularly as an acting coach, and in comedies, when the script isn't there, when it's not in the script and people are trying to improvise it in a comedy, and it hasn't been worked out beforehand, it doesn't work. Except if you're a brilliant improviser, like Robin Williams, or Jonathan Winters, or all the people that have come out of Second City and the Groundlings and, Upright Citizens Brigade, all the great, Tina Fey, and all those, and Amy Poehler, they write their scripts. They write the jokes. Those things are written and crafted, and a lot of people think they're just done on the spot.
Yeah.
And, they're not. Not that you can't have moments and things in the filming, because there's the reality of writing and then there's the reality of shooting. And shooting always has moments of accidents and spontaneity, and they usually are the best moments in the film. But comedy's very precise.
Yeah, Steve Martin is listed not just playing Nathan R. Johnson, but also playing the cat juggler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned Carl Gottlieb. I had him on my show a couple of years ago, and he talked about working on this and Jaws and Caveman and stuff like that. And what was your memories of him?
Available, personable, kind, funny, warm, on the set, which is not usual. Writers aren't on sets. Just a great guy.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful man. I have just beautiful, fond memories of him.
Yeah, and like you said, a great supporting cast. Bernadette Peters, right on the mark with this role. And, of course, she ends up knocking Patty out.
I know, but that lick, when he licks her face, that's one of my favorites. In the trailer, when he licks, do you remember when he licks her face?
Yep. Oh, he licks Bernadette's face, yep.
Yes. God, that was great.
Yeah, that romance was not something that Nathan Johnson was skilled in. They just kind of worked it out as they went.
Oh God, that's so. There's something so innocent about it. That innocence, that boy, man innocence that he got from the character. From rags to riches to rags is one of the great taglines.
I gotta say too, another scene that just makes me laugh is where he's just frustrated there at some point, and he's like, "I don't need anything," and he's like grabbing stuff as he's leaving the place. "I don't need one other thing. The matches need." He just. Right. I thought that was funny. He says, and he talks about his friends, and of course, there's these bums all passed out. I love that.
Yeah, it's just. I wonder what a comedy like that in today's culture how it would be received. It feels of its time too. Even though it's timeless, it also feels of its time.
Yeah. No, I don't know if they could make that today with the whole racial thing, even though I don't think the racial thing's exploited badly or anything like that in this film, but I could see some people getting apprehended about it, but...
You know what? People are getting up in arms about everything.
Yes.
Because of social media, everything becomes fodder for people's anger and projection, and it's like you can say anything and people react to it. It's just unbelievable.
It is.
Social media. I'm just so glad I didn't grow up with it. I don't think I would have survived it. I could barely survive middle school and high school, and I don't think with the social media, I don't know. I'm just so glad I didn't have any of it.
Yeah. What were your memories of Bernadette Peters?
She was a bit remote.
Okay.
We didn't, because our characters never really worked except together in one day. She's a very lovely, talented woman, and by the way, ageless.
Yeah.
I have never seen a woman. She looks the same now as she did when, and I don't exactly know how you do that and not look terrible. She looks unbelievable. She's quite a talent herself. But I think, I'm not sure, didn't their romance start from that movie?
Well, I don't know if they had a real life romance or not. I didn't look into that.
I think they did.
Oh, did they?
I think so.
Well, they were in Pennies from Heaven together, so.
Yeah, I really do think they.
Yeah.
I think there was a romance. That can happen.
Yeah. You mean he didn't try to romance you?
Obviously, he was terrified of me.
But you had a lot of interesting people that you were on screen with. But let's face it, Emmett Walsh as the madman, great in this movie.
Great.
Jackie Mason was wonderful.
Funny. So funny.
I love that. He hates these cans, Steve Harvey. He's not trying to put holes in the can. He's trying to put holes in you.
Well, how about the whole idea of how he makes his fortune with the glasses?
Yeah, and of course being
cross-eyed.
Oh, Carl Reiner.
It's true.
Carl Reiner playing himself.
Yeah, it's just wonderful. I mean, where it went, how it moved. It's such a great tale. And if people are listening to this show and have never seen it, what a treat.
Yes. Maurice Evans in this as Hobart.
No, it's a phenomenal group of character actors.
A lot, yes. Yeah, what do you think 40 years went by on this movie?
Well, the thing about it is, when you asked me to even talk about the film after 40 years, my response was 40 years have gone by because all of a sudden, when you're making a movie, you're not making a classic. You're making a movie you think no one's going to go see because it's so original and so odd and so out there. And that's what when you're acting in something, you don't have a clue if something is going to be good or bad. But everybody knew that this film was out there. We knew that because of the comedies of that time. So, a classic, it becomes a classic because of time. It's a classic because of the 40 years.
Yeah.
And, the truth is, time moves so slowly from the time you're 1 until you're 18. And then as soon as you pass your teens, it moves at an accelerated pace.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels, as you know, I don't know how old you are, but it goes by in a blink.
I just turned 47 today.
Oh, that's a wonderful age.
Yeah. Yep. I'm just a little older than you. You're 39.
A little bit. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, my profession now is coaching actors and teaching. I have my own acting classes, and I'm a very lucky and fortunate acting coach.
Mm-hmm.
And when people ask me about coaching, they say, "So you teach so and so?" I said, "No, I don't teach. When I coach, I'm not teaching anyone. I'm like the coach when you're watching the U.S. Open. you're watching the best players in the world playing, and I'm that coach. They already know how to play tennis better than anyone else. I'm just correcting some form in their game. And when you're a great actor or a talented actor, your desire to be great never lessens, and you're never satisfied. So you want to work with someone that pushes you.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Martin did that creatively in all other formats because he did that initially as a musician, right? That's how he started. Then he went into comedy. Then he went into writing short stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went into writing novels. Then he wrote plays that have been, won awards. He's a Renaissance man. That is what I call a Renaissance man.
Yeah.
He's so smart and he continues to be curious like we all are and growing.
Yes.
And I would love to run into him again.
Would you throw him up against the wall?
No, he wouldn't recognize me. I don't know. I would recognize him. He would know. He wouldn't know me.
Yeah. Tell me, what do your kids think of The Jerk now?
They think it's funny.
Okay.
They think it's actually funny.
Mm-hmm.
But, it took them 100 years to watch anything I was in. And, again, my son was forced to watch it. So, children, they don't look at their parents' things until they're older.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested. They're trying to create their own persona, their own life, they're trying to get away from their parents.
Yeah.
You have kids?
No, I don't want kids.
Yeah, well, that's part of your generation, too.
Yeah.
My niece is in her 40s, and she doesn't want kids.
Yeah. Well, you followed up The Jerk with The Jazz Singer. And
I did.
Yeah. And I seen the 1927 one with, why am I not getting the...
With Al Jolson.
Al Jolson, that's it. We watched that in film class years ago. Very daring thing with the blackface and whatnot, but nonetheless, and Neil Diamond does The Jazz Singers, because this has got Laurence Olivier in it as well. What were your memories of working on this film?
Well, that was a very difficult film.
Okay.
Because it had the most brilliant soundtrack. Neil Diamond's music, particularly in the 70s, was brilliant. And he's just a bard. And, the soundtrack to The Jazz Singer is phenomenal. The movie, however, wasn't very good. Initially, they had a director, and he was fired after the first 6 weeks of shooting. They went down, they stopped shooting, because the director was shooting with 5 cameras. And I don't know if you understand what that means, those big cameras in the early 80s or late 70s. Those were big cameras, remember? How big they were, and with the crew, with the camera crew around, each camera, there's at least 3 people. Well, the first scene I did with Neil Diamond, we were in bed. As I say, they start every movie with the bed scene or the sex scene.
Yeah.
And so we're in bed, and when I go on the set, there's 5 cameras around the bed. There's a wall, so they can only get so many. You can't get around to the bed because there's 5 cameras and 5 camera crews. And I said, what's going on here? And the director said, well, Neil has never acted before, and we want to make sure that when we have a good take, it's covered all in one take. So the close-ups, the overs, and the masters covered all with one take.
Okay.
So it was an impossible situation because, if you're working with a very talented, brilliant man who's never acted before, and it would have been helpful for him to have had an acting coach, someone to work with him on acting and making choices and helping him. I don't think anyone thought of it because acting coaches are like a secret in Hollywood. You know, you don't talk about it, but everybody works with an acting coach, because what happens is, as an actor, is the more famous you get, the less people actually talk to you. They're intimidated. Not if you're Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg, but less than that, you're a big actor and you want to be the best you can be, and no one's talking really to you. They're just saying good or whatever you want, or they're trying to placate you. They don't push you. So an acting coach really is a coach talking to you about your work and how to make it better, and it would have helped him. But he didn't have that. So, you know, he was, quote, he's naturalistic, but not really in the moment. He's not really there. So working with him wasn't that exciting.
Well, this film was up for a lot of Razzies, too. That, I think, was the first year for the Razzies.
Did it win?
I should look that up here, because it was certainly nominated. It didn't win Worst Picture, but...
You know, it's out. Even one of my favorite actors is Sir Laurence Olivier. You know, I admired him so much. I mean, in the middle of his career, when he was the number one star of the world, he stopped, he quit, and he founded. He was the director of the Royal Shakespeare Company, and then went on to do all the Shakespeare pieces and make Shakespearean films. And and that's what he did as a movie star. He sidetracked it and became an artist and did Hamlet and, did Henry V and Henry IV. And I mean, that's what he did. And so I had this huge crush on Sir Laurence Olivier, and I didn't even know how to talk to him. I was in a bit of awe. But even every day they changed the script. Every day they would take off my wedding ring and say, "You're not married. You're engaged. He's your fiance." And the next day would be other lines. And every day I had new lines. But because Sir Laurence Olivier was 83 or 85 years old, he had learned his lines, he had learned his accent, and you couldn't change one line. So they had to rewrite all my dialogue every day because they were rewriting the script every day. And the original script was very good, written by Stephen, wonderful writer. His name just appeared from my psyche. That happens when you get older. Yeah. And but they kept changing the script, and he was really accommodating and working and doing a great job, but it was an impossible situation. That's why the director was fired and they started again.
It was nominated for 5 Razzies, and it won 2.
Which one did it win for?
It won for Worst Actor for Neil Diamond, and it won Worst Supporting Actor for Laurence Olivier. It was up for... Yeah.
I rest my case. But the good news is that part got me... Right after those 2 films, I then did a television series called Square Peg.
Yeah.
And I loved that show. It was the first show, the first TV series, and it starred a very young Jessica Parker.
Okay.
Sarah Jessica Parker was her first. She was 15, and it was her first series. And it was a wonderful comedy, crazy comedy, written by Ann Beach. And she was one of the writers on Saturday Night Live. And it was the first kind of teenage... should I say Beverly Hills 90210, only much quirkier and not, Aaron Spelling.
Okay.
So that was so much fun to do because it was very odd and out there comedy. So the good news is that I got a really interesting, funny part after that. And then the network wanted to change the concept and concentrate more on the kids and less on the teachers.
Okay.
So when my role got diminished, I quit and I went into film school. I went to AFI. So at 27 or so is when I went to 28. 27 I started going to film school. So after that. So it was an interesting transition.
You're also listed here as being in Underworld Awakening. I've only seen.
Yeah, well,
I did see
that's
that
because
one.
I'm an acting coach, and
Okay.
I asked to be in it
Okay.
because I knew all the characters in it, and I love the Underworld films. I love Kate Beckinsale,
Okay.
and I love her work, and I love that particular Underworld. I love vampire films, so
Okay.
but I hadn't been acting. Acting is not anything I've been doing for the past a lot of years.
Yeah,
7
and
years.
some other ones. I never heard of this film, but if you want to talk about Up in the Cellar, what's
Oh, Up in the Cellar was the sequel to a very big hit called Three in the Cellar. And
Okay.
Three in the Cellar was, I think, one of the first motorcycle movies before Easy Rider,
okay.
and it was a very big. And they made a sequel, and it was a comedy.
Okay.
It was a kind of a very original comedy that no one saw because the lead actor, he didn't appeal to anybody. But it was, again, a comedy. I played the president's daughter, Tricia Nixon, kind of only in the school. Larry Hagman played my father. It was wonderful, a lot of wonderful comedians in that film as well. Obscure film that nobody saw. But then I directed a feature film that used to be on Netflix. I don't know why it's not anymore, called Sticky Fingers.
Okay.
And about 4 years ago, I won an award. The award was the best comedy of the 80s that nobody ever saw.
Okay.
So it was a wonderful comedy with a great group of comedic actors, from Melanie Maron to Helen Slater to Christopher Guest to Carol Kane to Denitra Vance to Loretta Devine to it had this wonderful Eileen Brennan. It's a great cast of comedians.
Yeah, and you did The Fortune for Mike Nichols, where you had Jack
Yes, I
Nicholson, Warren Beatty, Stockard Channing.
Yes, I did. And that was, again, with Christopher Guest. That's
Yep.
where I met Christopher Guest, because, of course, I did another sex scene with Christopher Guest. And basically, we were kind of glorified extras for that film. We were in the back seat of a car having sex, making out, and Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson are driving a truck or a bus, and I'm in the middle of orgasming, going, yes, yes, and then the truck hits us with them in it, and I think that's like him, my partner, and then I orgasm, and basically we were a sound joke in the film. Christopher Guest and I. Do you know Christopher Guest?
I know who he is because he was in This Is Spinal Tap. That's what. But he also did,
All the movies.
yeah, A Mighty Wind.
Yep.
Yep.
He's been in all the improv movies. He's created a genre, and he's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, he does great with
Writer,
musical films.
director.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's really a great mind and a great wit and a great actor. He disappears. In
Yes.
part. You don't even know who he is.
Well, what's up for the future for you? You don't act anymore?
No, I'm unless my friends put me in things.
Okay.
Like if you're directing, and so no, I'm working on a documentary, a living documentary. There's the 75th anniversary of the Actors Studio.
Okay.
I'm a member of it since I'm 14 years old, and I'm doing a documentary about all the people that are living and celebrating that birthday. So I'm making a documentary about that. I'm working on a new television series. I'm teaching. I teach in workshops, acting workshops in Los Angeles, New York.
Mm-hmm.
I travel, I feel like I love what I do, and I coach. Mostly I coach really great actors who, in that process, I get to do everything I've always done. So it's a great privilege what I get to do. I get to do everything I ever learned in the job that I'm doing now.
Are you going to coach motorcycle riding?
No, never. I will coach how not to. Yes, I will write the how not to book. How not to ride a motorcycle. How not to come into a room. How not to have crumbs on your shirt when you're auditioning. Those kinds of things.
You could use Steve Martin as a test for the motorcycle one.
I'd love to.
Do you have any I was going to say, do you have...
Yeah? I did direct the first episode of 91210, the original.
Okay.
And now, speaking of redos, they're doing like a 6-episode arc. I'm not sure which channel of... They're taking all the actors from the original 90210, it's like 6 of them, and they're doing like a version of them getting together, what it would be like if they got together to do a new show. So they're, they bring back people after so many years, and one is shocked about how old people get. I think.
Okay.
Age does not bode well in our culture.
No.
And yet, the most interesting people I know are the people that carry the history. So, yeah. But it's not anything we honor in this culture. We seem to deify youth, and that's tragic. It
is. Yeah. Are you involved in any charities of any sort that you'd like to plug on here?
My charity, anything to do with women's rights. I have not recovered since 1977 that the ERA never got passed. And okay. I think that it's astonishing and I'm thrilled that we have the laws that we have to protect us, even though we're losing some of those right now. But until we have equal rights, all my money goes to women's issues and equal rights. All my consciousness goes to how do we, in this culture, how do we expect to have a female president if we don't even may have equal pay? So I'm so upset about it. And I think it's the core issue of why, who just won soccer? The women's team, right? Mm-hmm. They don't make as much as the men's team. That is still going on. They're filling the stadium, and they don't make the same wage.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Until that changes, nothing is going to change for women.
I remember Robin Williams made a joke once. He said, there should be a female president. There definitely should be. Because it would be every 40 or every 28 days a severe negotiation, no wars.
Well, I don't know what to tell you about what's going on in this country.
Yeah. Yep, I hear you.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't want to take your show and make it a political show, but it's hard being an American right now.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you, and I don't get it either. I don't.
My money goes to education.
Yep.
My money goes to women that are still slaves.
Yep.
I'm looking for freedom, and how to find it inside and out is the journey. How to stay awake, how to stay conscious.
Yep.
How to work, how to keep working, and find meaning in your life. And contribute, stay open, stay loving, stay in the moment and not the future or the past. Those are the goals, and I feel really fortunate to do what I love
mm-hmm.
and to keep doing it. No one can retire me. I've always been self-employed, and it's a scary life to be self-employed because you never know when you're going to work, and people don't like that. But at the same time, I'm free to say no. And that is a privilege.
Well, you know what? I've never had an issue with working for women. I have no problem with that. It's funny you mentioned that because I have a couple friends who are married. They've been married for I don't know how long, and they've got 2 kids, and they're happy. One is a bus driver, and his wife works for the government. And he said he was approached once. He said, doesn't it bother you that your wife is making more money than you? And he said it never ever crossed his mind. And every time I see them, they're doing stuff together. They're doing stuff with their kids. He says he doesn't have time to think about that. He's making good money driving a bus. And his wife's bringing in a good income. He said, why would he bother thinking about... Yeah.
I agree with him. But he's living in the moment.
Yeah.
He's grateful. He's grateful. You know, he's in love.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything more important.
And they're always happy. I see them, yeah.
I mean, you know, you don't get to be happy all the time. Happiness comes and goes. That's why it's called happiness.
Yep.
You know, you don't get it without the hard times. You don't get it without the dark. But,
Yep.
you know, when you're working on a relationship, and intimacy in relationships, that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And if you don't laugh with the person you love, you're in trouble. My mother is 92 years old. Her boyfriend's 98. They live in her house. He's driving, goes to Costco, gets all my stuff. He's the funniest, wittiest guy I've ever met. Still knows how to come up with the joke at the end of a conversation.
Okay.
Drives. He's 98.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's 92, drives. Her health, her memory. Sometimes her memory has issues, but look at me. I couldn't remember half the people I was trying to remember today.
Yeah.
So but they're in love, and that's what keeps them alive.
Yep.
And that's what keeps them healthy. And my mother found love, real love, at 80. So anyone who's listening, any woman who's listening to this show, love is possible at any age. And by the way, they met on Jay's date.
Yeah.
In their 80s. He was, and what can I say? It's all possible.
Did they watch The Jerk together?
Actually, because of this show, and I told them I was going to do it, they asked for the DVD. Arnie, my stepfather, asked for the DVD, and because he wanted to watch it again. So...
Well, he's in for a treat.
Yeah.
Well, I think that
makes me want to watch it again. Your conversation with me, Greg, makes me want to watch it.
Well, you know what? I've enjoyed reminiscing with you about this film, and I have one more question before you go. I don't know if they're going to be doing anything with the conventions to celebrate The Jerk. I just started doing the convention scene, being invited by some of my guests, and it's quite interesting doing them. Do you do the convention scene? And number 2, what's the most interesting thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Well, now that you've said that, now somebody's going to ask me to sign some interesting parts of their body, but that's because you gave them the idea. Just want to go on record, you are going to be responsible for something, and it's going to happen. I've never gone to the conventions because they have them for, certain kinds of movies, and my girlfriend, who's in the original Grease, the movie,
yeah,
just went and did it. She has a lot of fun, and she was on some television series as well. So I've never done it, and I've never done it, so I don't know.
Question: who's your friend from Greece?
Dinah Manoff.
Oh, love her.
Kiki.
I've actually reached out to try to get her on here, but I never heard back. But I've interviewed 4 people from that movie. I've had Barry Pearl on. I've had the beautiful Antonia Franceschi on, who was a backup dancer. She was also in Fame, the movie. Dave Fregman, the still photographer's been on, and Eddie Deason's been on. But I've had no Pink Ladies yet.
Oh, well, I just talked to Dinah last week, and she was in Los Angeles to do, one of those things, which she does. It was her second. She's had a lot of fun doing it. she said it was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
She
but
also did it with her mother, Lee Grant, at one point, and they had a hoot. They had a great time.
oh, I'm glad to hear that. You need to get to some of these, you know. Even show up if you can. Show up in costume from the jerk.
Oh my God, I would love that. And you know what? I was like 98 pounds or 95 pounds for that, so I wouldn't get into that costume anymore. Not that I'm not in good shape, I am, but I was like, that was another body.
Well, you can always ask Steve Martin to ride with you on the back.
Well, I'm going to ask you to ride with me next time, honey. I think you're the one that's going to get a more charge out of it than him.
Sure.
Where are you? Where you're calling from in relationship to Canada? I don't know the area.
I live in Fredericton, New Brunswick. I'm an hour ahead of you where you are, and I'm an hour ahead of Toronto. So I'm 4 hours ahead of Los Angeles and Vancouver.
Well, and is it like Toronto, or is it like Vancouver, or is it like Calgary?
Toronto. You know what's funny? I have an actress friend, Lisa Langlois, invited me to Horrorama back in 2017. She was on my show a couple times, and she asked me why I never travel, and she said, what's stopping me? And she invited me to be her assistant at this, and I couldn't say no, because I always loved Lisa. And when I got to Toronto, like I'm just in a small city here, I got to Toronto and my eyes just opened up, like look at the towering buildings, you know? And I loved it.
You're a small town man in that. So that's such an intimate community. You know people, they know you. You grew up with them, right?
Yeah, but if I had the chance and the money, I'd move to Toronto in a heartbeat. I loved it there so much, and I'm going there for 2 weeks this fall. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, I love it. But I always tell people where we are, probably our most, for celebrities, I'd say we're most connected with the Trailer Park Boys. So if you've heard of them.
No.
No? Well, they've done.
You know, I don't hear of anything. I'm the one person you can mention a name to, and you can be the most famous person in the world, and somehow I'll not know who you are.
I know who you are.
I know, but I don't have that celebrity thing, and it's good because in my profession, it's better for me not to know who I'm working with and then discover them.
Yeah.
So, anyway, because of you, I'm going to do like a little picture, and when it's the 40th. Do you know when the official 40th anniversary is? Is it in September or something?
Oh, let me look that up here, because I'll find out pretty darn quick. Because I've got the Internet Movie Database on here right now. It says here.
I gotta get off. I have to go to work.
Yeah, it says here December 14th.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's right there at the end of the year. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
well,
yeah,
thank you for telling me that the jerk is 40 years old, and reminding me how old I am. I do appreciate it.
You are 39.
Well, now I'm younger than the actual anniversary. But thank you so much for asking me to be a guest on your show. It's a pleasure.
It is a pleasure and honor, and I was happy to do it. And I was going to say, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Hi, I'm Catlin Adams. Please listen to me and Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise out of New Brunswick, Canada.
Thank you so much, Catlin, for coming on here and reminiscing about the jerk and your need to get back on the motorcycle again so Steve Martin can get over his fears.
Right. I'll give you a ride next time, Greg.
I'll take it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.